The laughter hit Nadia first, sharp and cruel, cutting through the classical music playing softly in her in-laws' living room. She had only gone upstairs to get her phone from the guest bedroom where she'd left it charging, but now she stood frozen in the hallway, her hand gripping the banister so tightly her knuckles ached. "You have to understand," Trevor's voice carried clearly from the sitting room below. "Living with Nadia has been the biggest disappointment of my life. I thought I was getting a partner, someone who could keep up with me, you know? But instead I got this woman who can't even host a proper dinner party without burning something or saying the wrong thing to clients." More laughter. Nadia recognized the voices now. Trevor's brother Nathan, his sister Patricia, their mother Eleanor, and several cousins whose names she'd tried so hard to remember over the years. The same people she'd spent the entire afternoon serving, smiling at, trying to please. "Remember last month when she wore that dress to the charity gala?" Patricia's voice dripped with amusement. "I wanted to die of secondhand embarrassment. Trevor, how do you deal with it?" "I don't know how you've managed this long," Eleanor added. "If I had known this is what you were settling for, I would have set you up with the Henderson girl. Remember her? Beautiful, educated, came from the right kind of family." "Oh, believe me, I know," Trevor interrupted. His voice was different now, not the gentle tone he used with Nadia but something harder, almost bitter. "Sometimes I look at her across the dinner table and wonder what I was thinking. She can't hold a conversation with my colleagues. She dresses like she shops at discount stores. And don't even get me started on her family. Did you know her father was a mechanic?" "A mechanic?" "Trevor." Eleanor gasped, but she was laughing. They were all laughing. "I'm serious. I've spent 5 years trying to polish her up, make her presentable, and it's like trying to teach a dog to use silverware. She's an embarrassment. The embarrassment of the family, really. I'm just waiting for the right time to..." Nadia didn't wait to hear the rest. She turned and walked back down the hallway on legs that didn't quite feel like her own, moving on autopilot, her mind a strange blank space of shock and something else, something that felt like her entire world tilting on its axis. She found herself in the guest bathroom, door locked, sitting on the closed toilet lid, staring at her reflection in the mirror across from her. The face looking back seemed like a stranger's. Carefully applied makeup, hairstyled exactly how Eleanor had once suggested she wear it, a bit more polished dear for the family gatherings, wearing the navy dress Trevor had picked out because it's appropriate and doesn't draw too much attention. How long had she been erasing herself? 5 years. They'd been married for 5 years, and she realized with a creeping horror that she couldn't remember the last time Trevor had looked at her with actual warmth. When was the last time he'd asked her about her day? When was the last time he'd touched her without it feeling like an obligation? Her phone buzzed in her hand. A text from Trevor. "Where are you? Mother wants to serve coffee." Of course. She was supposed to be downstairs serving his family, the same family that had just spent the last 10 minutes laughing about what an embarrassment she was. The same husband who had just told them all that he was waiting for the right time to, what? Leave her? Divorce her? Nadia looked at her reflection again. 32 years old. A college degree she'd never used because Trevor said his salary was enough and he needed her to support him properly. Friends she'd lost touch with because they weren't the right kind of people for where we're going. A family she barely saw anymore because Trevor always had some excuse about why they couldn't visit. Too far, too busy, maybe next month. She had become so small, so quiet, so invisible. Except she wasn't invisible. They saw her. They saw her perfectly clearly. They just didn't like what they saw. Another text. "Nadia? Mother is getting impatient." Her fingers moved automatically, typing out a response. "Headache. In the bathroom. Down in a minute." But she didn't move. She sat there for what might have been 5 minutes or 50, listening to the muffled sounds of the party below, trying to remember who she had been before Trevor. Before she'd spent 5 years trying to shrink herself into whatever shape would finally make him proud of her. The girl who had loved art galleries and independent bookstores. Who had worn bright colors and laughed too loud and didn't care if she said the wrong thing at parties because she was too busy enjoying herself. Who had dreams of working in museums or galleries, of being surrounded by beauty and creativity. Who had been happy. When had she stopped being happy? The answer was immediate and devastating. The day she married Trevor. No, before that. The day she'd met his family and seen how they looked at her, measuring her, finding her wanting, and instead of walking away, she'd decided to change herself to fit their expectations. She'd spent 5 years auditioning for a role she would never get, in a play she didn't even want to be in. "Nadia." Trevor's voice called from down the hall, irritated now. "What are you doing? Everyone's waiting." She stood up slowly, smoothed down her navy dress, checked her makeup. Then she opened the door and walked past Trevor without meeting his eyes. "Sorry," she murmured, feeling a bit unwell. "Well, try to pull yourself together," he said, not unkindly but not kindly either. Just dismissive. Like she was a minor inconvenience, a small problem to be managed. Mother made her special coffee cake. Nadia walked downstairs, served coffee with a smile, cut the cake into perfect slices and laughed at Nathan's jokes. She played the role she'd been playing for 5 years, except now she could see the script clearly. She could see how they all looked at her, not quite meeting her eyes, accepting her service but not her presence, tolerating her because they had to. And Trevor. She watched him across the room, telling a story about his latest business deal, commanding the room's attention like he always did. Handsome, successful, confident Trevor, who everyone admired and respected. The man she'd thought she was lucky to marry. The man who thought she was an embarrassment. When they finally left at 11 that night, Nadia sat in the passenger seat of Trevor's car and stared out the window at the passing streetlights. Trevor drove in silence, probably thinking about work or his next meeting, not noticing that his wife hadn't said a word since they'd gotten in the car. He never noticed. That was the problem. He'd never noticed her at all. He'd only ever seen what he wanted her to be, and when she couldn't be that, when she couldn't transform herself into the perfect accessory for his perfect life, she'd become invisible. Worse than invisible, an embarrassment. "You barely spoke tonight," Trevor said as they pulled into their driveway. "Mother asked if you were feeling all right." "Just tired," Nadia replied automatically. "Well, try to be more engaged next time. It reflects poorly on both of us when you just sit there like a bump on a log." Like a bump on a log. An embarrassment. A disappointment. A woman who dressed wrong and said wrong things and came from the wrong kind of family. "Okay," Nadia said softly. They went inside. Trevor headed straight for his home office to check a few emails. Nadia climbed the stairs to their bedroom, changed into pajamas and lay in bed staring at the ceiling. She didn't sleep. She couldn't. Her mind kept replaying the laughter, the casual cruelty, the way Trevor's voice had changed when he talked about her to his family. Like she wasn't even a real person, just a problem he was solving, a mistake he was managing. Around 3 in the morning, when she heard Trevor's soft snoring from his side of the bed, Nadia got up and went downstairs to the living room. She sat in the dark, watching the street through the window, and made a decision. She didn't know exactly what she was going to do yet, but she knew one thing with absolute certainty. She was done. Done trying to be someone she wasn't. Done accepting crumbs of affection and calling it love. Done being someone's embarrassment. She was leaving. She didn't know when or how, but she was leaving. And when she did, she would make sure she did it right. No drama, no scene, no giving Trevor or his family the satisfaction of watching her fall apart. She would simply disappear. The thought should have scared her, but instead, sitting there in the dark with the first rays of dawn beginning to lighten the sky, Nadia felt something she hadn't felt in 5 years. She felt free. Nadia spent the next morning moving through her usual routine like an actress who'd performed the same scene 1,000 times. Coffee made exactly how Trevor liked it, black, 1 sugar in the blue mug. Breakfast prepared while he read the financial section. Kiss on the cheek as he left for work, barely returned. "Don't forget we have the Hendersons' dinner party on Friday," he said, adjusting his tie in the hallway mirror. "Please try to wear something appropriate this time. And maybe review some talking points about the market. You completely blanked last time when Robert asked you about tech stocks." "Sure," Nadia said and watched him leave. The moment his car pulled out of the driveway, something shifted in her. The performance stopped. She stood in the middle of their immaculate kitchen. Everything in its place, nothing personal, nothing that reflected her at all, and looked around like she was seeing it for the first time. This wasn't her home. It had never been her home. It was Trevor's showcase, and she was just another piece of furniture that didn't quite match the decor. Her phone buzzed. A text from Trevor's mother. "Darling, I wanted to mention that Patricia knows a wonderful personal shopper. Perhaps she could help you with your wardrobe? Just a thought. Love, Eleanor." Nadia stared at the message for a long moment, then deleted it without responding. She walked upstairs to Trevor's office. He kept the door locked when he was home, but she'd seen the key in his nightstand drawer months ago. Her hands shook slightly as she opened the door and stepped inside. Orchestrated narrative progression revealing marital deception and emotional betrayal. I need to continue with the story. The chapter should be about Nadia discovering evidence of Trevor's affair and his true feelings about her. Let me continue writing chapter 2. The office was exactly like Trevor, organized, expensive, Impersonal. She sat down at his desk and opened his laptop. She knew his password. He'd told her once when he needed her to print something years ago. He'd never changed it because he'd never thought she'd use it without permission. Because she'd been the good, obedient wife who respected his privacy. The laptop hummed to life. Nadia's heart pounded as she opened his email first. The first few messages were business-related, boring strings of jargon about contracts and investments. But then she saw a name that appeared over and over, Bethany Morrison. Nadia clicked on the first email. Trevor, I can't wait to see you this weekend. Tell Nadia you have another conference. We can have the whole weekend at the cabin. I've missed you so much. B. Her vision blurred. She blinked, forced herself to focus and kept reading. There were dozens of emails. Hundreds maybe. Going back almost a year. Plans for meetings that Trevor had told Nadia were business trips. Photos that made her stomach turn. Intimate messages that used words Trevor had never used with her. Passionate words, romantic words, words that suggested he was capable of feeling things he'd certainly never felt for his wife. But worse than the affair itself were the other emails. Messages to his business partners, to his brother, to friends. One to Nathan from 3 months ago, can't make golf this weekend. Have to take Nadia to her parents' place. Yes, still dealing with that obligation. The things we do for appearances, right? At least Bethany understands what I need. Another to a colleague, sorry about dinner last night. I know Nadia was particularly painful to watch. I'm working on the problem, but these things take time. The prenup complicates things. And one to his lawyer from 2 weeks ago, I want to revisit the terms of the prenup we discussed. If I initiate divorce before the business merger goes through, how much would the settlement cost me? Need to time this correctly. The wife can't know anything until the Henderson deal is finalized, can't risk her making a scene that affects the negotiations. The wife. Not Nadia. Not even my wife. Just the wife. Nadia sat back in the chair, her whole body numb. He'd been planning this. Planning to leave her, planning when and how, calculating the cost of their marriage like it was a bad investment he needed to dump at the right market moment. She opened his text messages next. The conversation with Bethany was active, recent. From yesterday. Bethany, how much longer do we have to wait? I'm tired of being a secret. Trevor, just a few more weeks. The merger should close by mid-November and then I can file. Trust me, this will all be worth it. You're worth it. Once I'm free of her, we can finally start our real life together. Bethany, I hope so. I hate thinking about you going home to her every night. Trevor, it's torture. But it's temporary. She has no idea what's coming. She's clueless about everything. Money, business, even basic social intelligence. This will be the easiest divorce of my life. Nadia's hands were shaking now. She took screenshots of everything, the emails, the texts, the message to his lawyer. She sent them all to her own email, then deleted the sent messages from his account. She kept digging. She found bank statements showing money he'd been moving around, hiding assets. She found documents about the Henderson merger, hundreds of millions of dollars, a deal that would make Trevor extraordinarily wealthy. A deal that was set to close in 3 weeks. And she found the draft divorce papers his lawyer had prepared, dated for December 1st. Just after the merger. Just after he'd secured his fortune and could afford to dump the problem. The papers listed reasons for divorce, irreconcilable differences, and incompatibility. How civilized. How clean. How convenient. Nadia saved copies of everything. Then she carefully closed all the windows, cleared the browser history, and shut down the laptop exactly as she'd found it. She put the key back in the nightstand drawer and went back downstairs. In the kitchen, she made herself tea with hands that still trembled. She sat at the breakfast bar and stared at nothing, her mind racing but also strangely calm. The shock was wearing off, replaced by something harder. Something clearer. This wasn't just about the affair. Affairs she could have maybe understood. People made mistakes, people were weak, people fell out of love. That would have been painful, but it would have made sense. This was different. This was calculated. Trevor had spent their entire marriage looking down on her, tolerating her, counting the days until he could afford to be rid of her. He'd isolated her from her friends and family, made her doubt herself, convinced her that she was the problem, all while planning his exit strategy and sneaking around with another woman. And his family, they'd known. Maybe not about Bethany, but they'd known how he felt about her. They'd laughed about it, made jokes about it, treated her like she was nothing. Nadia's phone buzzed. Another text from Eleanor. Also, dear, I've been meaning to mention. Trevor mentioned you don't know how to make a proper roast. I'd be happy to teach you. Every wife should know how to cook for her husband properly. Every wife should know her worth, Nadia thought. And hers was a lot more than this. She spent the rest of the day going through the house with new eyes. She looked through drawers, closets, the home safe. Combination was their wedding anniversary. How ironic. She found more evidence of Trevor's double life. Receipts from expensive restaurants she'd never been to. Hotel charges from cities he'd claimed were business trips. Credit card statements showing purchases of jewelry she'd never received. In the back of his closet, hidden in a suit bag, she found a burner phone. The messages on it were even more explicit, more damning. Plans and promises, intimate details that made her feel sick. But she documented everything. Took photos, made copies, sent them all to her secret email account that Trevor didn't know about. By the time Trevor came home that evening, Nadia had a complete picture of her marriage. And it was worse than she'd imagined. "Dinner ready?" Trevor called out as he walked in, already loosening his tie. "Almost," Nadia replied, her voice steady. She'd ordered takeout from his favorite restaurant and plated it like she'd cooked it. Another performance. They ate in near silence. Trevor scrolled through his phone, probably texting Bethany. Nadia watched him and felt nothing. No love, no anger, not even really hurt anymore. Just a cold, clear certainty. "I have a conference in Atlanta this weekend," Trevor said without looking up. "Leave Friday morning, back Sunday night." "Okay," Nadia said. "The cabin with Bethany," she translated mentally. "Try not to blow up the house while I'm gone," he added with a small laugh, like it was a joke. Like she was incompetent even at being alone. "I'll do my best," Nadia replied. That night, while Trevor slept beside her, Nadia lay awake making plans. She had 3 weeks before the merger closed. 3 weeks before Trevor planned to blindside her with divorce papers, probably after securing all the assets in his name. But she wasn't going to wait for Trevor's timeline. She wasn't going to play the role of the clueless wife who got discarded after she'd served her purpose. She'd spent 5 years being who Trevor wanted her to be. Being small, quiet, apologetic, grateful for whatever scraps of attention he threw her way. That version of Nadia was gone now. Dead. Killed by the sound of laughter in her in-laws' sitting room and the cold words in her husband's emails. The woman lying in this bed, staring at the ceiling, planning her escape, she was someone new. Someone who knew her worth. Someone who wasn't going to let Trevor control the narrative. Tomorrow she would start building her exit strategy. She would be methodical, careful, smart. She would make sure that when she left, it would be on her terms, not his. Trevor had called her clueless. He had no idea what was coming. And that, Nadia thought with grim satisfaction, was his biggest mistake. Nadia woke up Friday morning to an empty bed. Trevor had already left for his conference. Really his romantic weekend with Bethany at the cabin. He kissed her forehead before leaving, a gesture so automatic and meaningless it made her skin crawl. "See you Sunday," he'd whispered. "Try to do something productive while I'm gone." Productive. Right. The moment his car disappeared down the street, Nadia was out of bed and moving. She had 72 hours of complete freedom, and she wasn't going to waste a single minute. First stop, the bank. She'd spent the last few days researching, learning things Trevor had always handled because he'd told her she wouldn't understand the complicated stuff. Turned out, banking wasn't that complicated when you actually tried to learn it. At the bank, she met with a financial advisor named Gerald, a kind man in his 60s who didn't talk down to her even once. She opened a new checking and savings account in only her name, at a completely different bank from the one Trevor used. She transferred half of the money from their joint account. Money she'd contributed to for years with the small inheritance from her grandmother, money that was legally half hers. "I want to make sure my husband can't access this account," Nadia told Gerald. "Is that possible?" "Absolutely," Gerald replied, not asking questions, not judging. "This account is in your name only. Unless you provide him with the account information and access, he'll have no knowledge it even exists." Nadia also learned about Trevor's attempts to hide assets. Gerald couldn't give her specific advice about divorce proceedings, but he could educate her about common financial tactics and what documentation she should keep. She left with folders full of information and a feeling of power she hadn't experienced in years. Next, she drove to a lawyer's office across town. She'd found Diane Mitchell through careful research, a divorce attorney with a reputation for being tough, thorough, and discreet. Diane's office was in a modern building, all glass and steel, nothing like the stuffy old money establishments Trevor preferred. Diane was a black woman in her 50s with sharp eyes and a no-nonsense demeanor. She listened to Nadia's story without interruption, occasionally making notes on a legal pad. You said your husband has been planning to file in December, after this business merger? Diane asked when Nadia finished. Yes. He's been hiding assets, preparing divorce papers, the whole thing. And you have documentation of all this? Nadia opened her phone and showed Diane the screenshots and photos she'd collected. Emails, texts, bank statements, everything. Diane's expression didn't change, but her eyes gleamed with something that might have been satisfaction. This is excellent work, Nadia. You've gathered exactly what we need. What are my options? Several. First, you don't have to wait for him to file. You can file first, which gives you certain advantages. Second, because you have evidence of adultery and asset concealment, we can contest the prenup. It may not be enforceable if we can prove he entered the marriage or conducted himself during the marriage in bad faith. Nadia's heart raced. So I'm not trapped? The prenup doesn't mean I walk away with nothing? Not necessarily. Especially with this evidence. But Nadia, I need to be clear. Divorce litigation can be lengthy and expensive. If your goal is to leave quickly and cleanly, that's one strategy. If your goal is to fight for a fair settlement, that's another. What do you want? Nadia thought about Trevor's emails. The way he'd calculated her worth, planned to discard her, laughed at her with his family. The years she'd spent shrinking herself, apologizing for existing, trying to be good enough. I want fair, she said firmly. I want what I'm legally entitled to, and I want to make sure he can't screw me over. But I also want out. I don't want to drag this out for years just to punish him. I just want what's mine and my freedom. Diane nodded. I can work with that. Here's what I suggest. We prepare all the documentation, but we don't file yet. You take some time to get yourself situated, find a place to live, line up your support system, make sure you're emotionally and practically ready. When you're set, you leave and then we file immediately. We use all this evidence to push for a quick, fair settlement. He won't want this information becoming public, especially not during his big merger. We can leverage that. How long do I have? I'd suggest you leave before he does. Before that December filing date. Don't give him the chance to control the narrative or the timing. Leave when you're ready, but leave strategically. Nadia left Diane's office feeling lighter than she had in days. She had a plan now. She had an ally. She had options. Over the weekend, while Trevor was at the cabin with Bethany, Nadia worked methodically through her list. She contacted her old college roommate, Simone, who lived in Chicago, about 6 hours away. They'd been close once, before Trevor had gradually edged her out of Nadia's life with comments about how Simone was too much, and not the kind of friend who'll help you move forward. Nadia. Simone's voice on the phone was shocked and delighted. Oh my God, I've been wanting to reach out for years, but you stopped returning my calls and I figured you'd moved on. I'm sorry, Nadia said and meant it. I got lost for a while. But I'm finding my way back. She told Simone everything, not the details of the affair but enough. That her marriage was over, that she was leaving, that she needed a place to stay for a little while until she got on her feet. You can stay as long as you need, Simone said immediately. I have a guest room that's just collecting dust. When are you thinking? Soon. Maybe 2 weeks? 3 at most. Whenever you're ready. And Nadia? I'm proud of you. I know I don't know all the details, but I know it takes guts to leave. You're stronger than you think. Nadia also reached out to her younger brother, Isaiah, who she'd barely spoken to in 3 years. Trevor had always found reasons why they couldn't visit, why Isaiah's phone calls came at inconvenient times, why family gatherings were too much drama. Isaiah answered on the second ring. Nadia? Is everything okay? Hearing his voice made her chest ache. Not really, but it's going to be. Can we talk? They talked for 2 hours. Nadia told him about Trevor, about the marriage, about everything she'd discovered. Isaiah listened, his anger building. I knew something was wrong, Isaiah said. Mom and I both did. But every time we tried to reach out, Trevor would answer your phone or you'd make excuses. We thought maybe you just didn't want us around anymore. Never, Nadia said, crying now. I never wanted that. I lost myself. Well, you're finding yourself again, Isaiah said firmly. And when you leave that jerk, you're not going to be alone. You've got family who loves you. Real family, not those pretentious assholes he calls relatives. Nadia also spent the weekend boxing up her personal belongings, things Trevor had never cared about. Her books, her old art supplies, photos from before the marriage, the jewelry her grandmother had left her. She stored the boxes in the back of her closet, ready to go. She researched jobs in Chicago, updated her resume, reached out to a few contacts from her old museum studies program. She'd let those connections lapse, but when she explained she was relocating and looking for opportunities, several people responded with leads and encouragement. She even scheduled an appointment with a therapist in Chicago for her second week there. She knew this wasn't going to be easy, that leaving was just the first step in a long journey of healing and rebuilding. Sunday evening, Trevor came home tanned and relaxed, smelling like expensive cologne and someone else's perfume. "How was your weekend?" he asked absently, dropping his bag by the door for Nadia to deal with. "Quiet," she replied. "Productive." "Good. I'm exhausted. Wake me up when dinner's ready." He headed upstairs for a shower. Nadia stood in the kitchen listening to the water run, and felt nothing but contempt. Over the next 2 weeks, Nadia continued her preparations. She made copies of every important document: tax returns, insurance policies, property deeds, investment statements. She documented every asset they owned. She took photos of everything in the house, time-stamped and detailed, in case Trevor tried to claim she'd taken things that weren't hers. She withdrew cash in small amounts that wouldn't raise red flags. She got a new phone on her own plan. She rented a storage unit and started moving boxes there, a few at a time, whenever Trevor was at work. She played her role perfectly. The dutiful wife, the embarrassment of the family, the woman who didn't know any better. She attended the Hendersons' dinner party in the appropriate dress, said the appropriate things, smiled appropriately. She let Eleanor teach her how to make a proper roast, even though Nadia had been making excellent roasts for years. Trevor had just never noticed. All the while she was planning her escape. She set a date, November 15th. 2 weeks before Trevor's merger would close. 2.5 weeks before he planned to file for divorce on his terms. On November 14th, Trevor announced another business trip. "Just overnight," he said. "Back tomorrow evening." Perfect, Nadia thought. But she said, "Okay. Safe travels." She kissed him goodbye the morning of November 15th, watched him drive away, and then she moved. She'd hired movers, 2 guys from a company 3 towns over who didn't know Trevor. They had her boxes from storage loaded and ready. In 3 hours they packed up everything that was hers. Her clothes, her books, her grandmother's china that Eleanor had always said was too shabby for Trevor's house. Every single thing that mattered to her. She left the furniture. All of it had been chosen by Trevor or his mother anyway. She left the expensive art on the walls, the designer kitchenware, the silk curtains. She took her life back piece by piece, box by box. By noon, the house looked almost exactly the same, just slightly emptier in ways Trevor probably wouldn't even notice. Her closet was bare, but he never looked in there. Her bathroom counter was clear, but he had his own bathroom. Nadia walked through the house one last time. 5 years she'd lived here and it had never felt like home. It felt like a museum, cold and perfect and lifeless. A place where she'd been a guest who'd overstayed her welcome. In the kitchen, she left her wedding ring on the counter. Just the ring, nothing else. No note, no explanation. Let him wonder. Let him guess. Let him feel a fraction of the confusion and hurt she'd felt. She locked the door behind her, dropped her key through the mail slot and got into her car. Her phone buzzed immediately, Trevor's mother calling. Nadia declined it. Another buzz, a text from Patricia. Declined. Another call from Trevor's brother. She blocked all their numbers. Every single one. Trevor's family, his friends, anyone connected to his life. She blocked them all. Then she pulled up Trevor's contact and paused. Her finger hovered over the block button. Part of her wanted to answer when he called, wanted to hear the panic in his voice when he realized she was gone. But no. That would be giving him something he didn't deserve. Her attention, her emotional labor, her time. She blocked his number. Then she opened her email and sent a message to Diane, "I'm out. File the papers." Nadia started the car and pulled out of the driveway. In her rearview mirror, she watched the house get smaller and smaller until it disappeared completely. She didn't cry. She didn't feel sad. She felt free. Chicago was 6 hours away. She had a tank full of gas, a car full of her belongings and a friend waiting for her. For the first time in 5 years, Nadia was going home. Not to a house but to herself. And she was never looking back. The drive to Chicago felt like shedding skin. Each mile that passed between Nadia and her old life made her breathe easier. She drove with the windows down despite the November chill, letting the wind whip through her hair that Trevor had always wanted her to keep neat and controlled. She texted Simone when she left, "On my way. See you around 6. Simone's response was immediate, "Can't wait. Drive safe. There's wine and pizza waiting for you. And hugs. Lots of hugs." Nadia smiled at her phone. When was the last time someone had offered her something without expecting anything in return? When was the last time someone had just been happy to see her? Around hour 3 her new phone rang, the one Trevor didn't have the number for. It was Diane. "Papers are filed," the lawyer said briskly. "I sent them to his office via courier about an hour ago. He should have them by now." Nadia's heart skipped. What happens now? Now he has 30 days to respond. But given the evidence we have, I expect his lawyer will contact me soon to discuss settlement options. Men like your husband don't want messy divorces, especially not during major business deals. The affair, the asset hiding, the evidence of bad faith, all of that makes the prenup contestable. He'll want to settle quickly and quietly. And if he doesn't? Then we go to court and all of this becomes public record. Trust me, he won't want that. I'll keep you updated. For now, just focus on settling into your new place. You did the hard part. You left. After they hung up, Nadia found herself checking the rearview mirror compulsively, like Trevor might somehow appear behind her. But of course he didn't know where she was. He didn't know about Simone, didn't know about Chicago, didn't know about any of it. For the first time in their marriage, she'd done something he couldn't control. She arrived at Simone's apartment building just as the sun was setting. It was in a vibrant neighborhood she'd never heard of, tree-lined streets, local shops, people walking dogs and pushing strollers. It felt alive in a way her old neighborhood never had, with its identical houses and manicured lawns and suffocating silence. Simone met her at the door before Nadia even had a chance to knock. She was exactly as Nadia remembered, wild curly hair, bright clothes, a smile that took up her whole face. She pulled Nadia into a hug so tight it almost hurt. "Oh, honey," Simone murmured. "You made it. You actually made it." And then Nadia was crying, really crying for the first time since all of this started. Not pretty tears, but ugly, gasping sobs that shook her whole body. All the fear and pain and rage she'd been holding in came pouring out on Simone's doorstep. Simone just held her and let her cry. "Come on," Simone said eventually, guiding her inside. "Let's get you settled. The breakdown can continue inside where it's warm." Simone's apartment was everything Trevor would have hated. Colorful, cluttered in a cozy way, full of plants and books and mismatched furniture. Art covered the walls, real art, not the expensive pieces Trevor bought because they were investment pieces. There were photos everywhere, memories of a life fully lived. "Your room," Simone said, opening a door off the hallway. "It's small but it's yours. No one will bother you here. No one will judge you. No one will make you feel like you have to be anyone except exactly who you are." The room had a bed with a colorful quilt, a small desk by the window, an empty closet waiting to be filled. It was simple, imperfect, and the most beautiful thing Nadia had seen in years. "It's perfect," Nadia whispered. They spent that evening eating pizza on Simone's couch, drinking wine and catching up. Nadia told her everything, the full story, nothing held back. Simone listened, occasionally interjecting with colorful commentary about Trevor's character. "I knew he was trouble," Simone said. "Remember when we all went out for your birthday that first year you two were dating? He made that comment about my hair being unprofessional. Like, excuse me? We were at a bar, not a board meeting." Nadia remembered. She defended Trevor back then, made excuses. "He just wants the best for everyone," she'd said. How blind she'd been. "Did he ever even ask what you wanted?" Simone asked. "In all those years, did he ever actually care about what would make you happy?" Nadia thought about it. Really thought about it. No, she realized. Everything was always about him. His career, his family, his image. I was just supposed to support it all and be grateful for the opportunity. Well, that's done now. You get to figure out what you want. Who you want to be. And trust me, you're going to be amazing. Around midnight, Nadia's new phone rang. Unknown number. Her stomach dropped. "Don't answer it," Simone said immediately. "If it's him, he doesn't deserve your time. If it's important, they'll leave a message." They didn't leave a message. But over the next hour, her phone rang 17 more times. Different numbers, all unknown. Trevor calling from different phones, probably trying to get through to her. Then the voicemail started. "Nadia, what the hell is going on? I came home and you're gone? Your stuff is gone? Call me back right now. This is insane. Nadia, I don't know what you think you're doing, but you need to come home. We can talk about this. Whatever's wrong, we can fix it. I got papers from some lawyer? Are you serious right now? You can't just leave and file for divorce without even talking to me. That's not how marriage works." And then hours later his tone changed. "Nadia, please. I don't understand. If I did something wrong, tell me what it is. I deserve at least that. 5 years of marriage and you just disappear? That's cruel. Simone was reading over Nadia's shoulder. Oh, now it's cruel? The audacity of this man. The voicemails from Trevor's family started arriving next. Eleanor, Patricia, Nathan, all of them demanding to know where she was, what she was thinking. How dare she embarrass the family like this? Embarrass the family, Nadia repeated with a bitter laugh. That's rich. Block them all, Simone advised. You don't owe them anything. Not even an explanation. Nadia blocked the numbers, but new ones kept calling. Trevor was determined she'd give him that. Then around 2 a.m, a text came through from a number she didn't recognize. Nadia, it's Bethany. Trevor's a mess. I don't know what's going on between you two, but he's here at my place and he's falling apart. Whatever you're trying to prove, you've made your point. At least text him back so he knows you're okay. Nadia stared at the message for a long moment. Then she showed it to Simone. The nerve, Simone said. The absolute nerve of this woman. Nadia typed out a response. Trevor's at your place? Funny. He told me he was at a conference. I guess we both know what kind of conferences he attends. Don't contact me again. She blocked that number too. Good, Simone said. Now put the phone away and get some sleep. Tomorrow's a new day. But Nadia couldn't sleep. She lay in the unfamiliar bed in the unfamiliar room, listening to the unfamiliar sounds of the city outside, and felt like she was floating. Everything that had defined her life for the past 5 years was gone. Her marriage, her home, her daily routine, all of it erased in a single day. She should have felt scared. Instead, she felt free. The next morning, Nadia woke to the smell of coffee and found Simone making breakfast. How'd you sleep? Simone asked. Better than I have in years, Nadia realized. And it was true. No Trevor beside her, breathing his judgmental breaths. No anxiety about what mood he'd be in when he woke up. No performance to prepare for. Good. Because we have a busy day ahead. Job hunting, apartment searching. Oh, and I made you an appointment with my therapist for next week. She's amazing, and trust me, you're going to need someone to talk to as you process all this. Over the next few days, Nadia started building her new life. She updated her resume and applied for jobs at museums and galleries around Chicago. She looked at apartments, though Simone insisted she should take her time. She registered with a temp agency to have income while she searched for something permanent. And she waited for the fallout. Diane called on day 3. Trevor's lawyer wants to meet. They're pushing for mediation. Already? I told you, he doesn't want this getting messy. The merger is too important. His lawyer knows that with our evidence, they're not in a strong position. They want to settle fast. What do they want? They're willing to negotiate on the prenup terms. Significantly. I think we can get you a fair settlement, Nadia. Not just what the prenup said, but what you actually deserve. How fair? We're talking several $100,000, maybe more. Plus your share of any assets acquired during the marriage. And I'll make sure he covers all your legal fees. Nadia felt dizzy. She'd left expecting nothing but her freedom. The prenup had been ironclad, or so Trevor had always told her. How is that possible? Because the prenup is worthless if we can prove he entered the marriage in bad faith or committed fraud. And honey, hiding assets while planning a secret divorce? That's fraud. The affair is just the cherry on top. He violated the terms of the marriage, which voids the prenup. His lawyer knows this. They want to settle before we file all this evidence in court. So what do I do? Leave it to me. I'll negotiate. You just keep building your new life. Word spread somehow. By week 2, Nadia started getting friend requests on social media from people she'd gone to college with, old co-workers from before Trevor, friends she'd lost touch with. Somehow they'd heard she was in Chicago, that she'd left Trevor. She accepted the requests carefully, rebuilding connections slowly. One message came from a girl named Rachel who'd been in her art history program. Hey, I heard you're in Chicago now. I'm the curator at the Riverside Gallery. We're actually looking for an assistant curator. Would you be interested? Nadia stared at the message. The Riverside Gallery. She'd read about it, a mid-sized gallery known for supporting emerging artists and innovative exhibitions. Exactly the kind of place she'd dreamed of working before Trevor had convinced her to be realistic. She typed back, very interested. Can we set up a meeting? By week 3, Nadia had a job interview scheduled, a therapist she'd met with twice, and a small studio apartment lined up to move into next month. She had her own money, her own plans, her own life. And Trevor? Trevor had the merger, the mistress, and the slowly dawning realization that his biggest embarrassment had been underestimating his wife. Diane called with news. They've agreed to our terms. $450,000 lump sum, plus your car, plus full legal fees, plus your portion of the retirement accounts. You walk away free and clear, and this whole thing will be finalized in 60 days. He agreed to that? His lawyer strongly encouraged it. The alternative was me filing all our evidence in public court, right as his merger was being finalized. The scandal would have cost him millions, potentially killed the whole deal. $450,000 was cheap to make you go away quietly. Make her go away. Even now, that's all she was to him, a problem to be solved with money. But the difference was now Nadia was okay with that. She didn't want Trevor's love or respect anymore. She didn't want his family's approval. She just wanted her freedom and a fair shake. And she was getting both. Tell them we have a deal, Nadia said. But I have one condition. What's that? I never have to see or speak to him again. All communication goes through you. If he tries to contact me directly, the deal's off. Done. I'll add it to the agreement. That night, Simone took Nadia out to celebrate. They went to a small wine bar in a neighborhood Trevor would have called too ethnic, or not our kind of place. They drank too much wine, laughed too loud, and didn't care who heard them. To new beginnings, Simone toasted. To new beginnings, Nadia echoed. But later, alone in her temporary room, Nadia looked at herself in the mirror. She'd cut her hair shorter, stopped wearing the appropriate clothes, started dressing like herself again. She barely recognized the woman looking back at her. But this woman, this new version, looked happy, looked free, looked alive. Trevor had called her an embarrassment. But the truth was she'd been embarrassed of herself for staying so long in a marriage that diminished her, for letting someone else define her worth. Never again. She had $450,000 coming, a job interview at a gallery she loved, a friend who actually cared about her, and a whole life ahead of her to rebuild. Trevor had his merger, his mistress, and his empty house. In the end, Nadia thought she'd gotten the better deal. Trevor Henderson's carefully constructed world began to crumble exactly 72 hours after he signed the divorce settlement agreement. The merger he'd sacrificed his marriage for, the one that was supposed to make him wealthy beyond his dreams, collapsed spectacularly when the Henderson family discovered inconsistencies in his financial disclosures. Nadia heard about it through Simone, who'd heard it from a former colleague who still moved in those circles. Apparently, during the divorce proceedings, his lawyers had to disclose all his assets, Simone explained, reading from her phone. And when the Hendersons people did their final due diligence before closing the merger, they found accounts and investments Trevor hadn't mentioned in his initial disclosures to them. They thought he was hiding something bigger, pulled out of the deal entirely. So the business deal fell through? Nadia asked. They were sitting in Simone's living room, Nadia having just returned from her job interview at the Riverside Gallery. Completely. And get this, Bethany found out about the settlement amount he paid you. Word is, she's furious that he had $500,000 to give his ex-wife but apparently told her he was cash poor and couldn't afford to buy her a condo like he'd promised. Nadia should have felt satisfaction. Instead, she felt nothing. Trevor's problems weren't hers anymore. She'd gotten what she needed, her freedom and a fair settlement, and whatever happened to him after that was simply the natural consequences of his own choices. How's that supposed to make me feel? Nadia asked quietly. However you want to feel, Simone replied. You're allowed to be glad. You're allowed not to care. You're allowed to feel sorry for him, though personally, I think that would be a waste of your empathy. I don't feel sorry for him, Nadia said. I just feel nothing. He's not my problem anymore. Her phone buzzed. An email from Rachel at the Riverside Gallery. Loved meeting with you today. We'd like to offer you the position of assistant curator. Details attached. Let me know if you have questions. Nadia's hands trembled as she opened the attachment. The salary wasn't huge, but it was enough to support herself. More importantly, it was hers. A job she'd gotten on her own merit in a field she loved, at a place that valued her. I got it, she whispered. Simone, I got the job. Simone squealed and pulled her into a hug. Of course you did. You're brilliant and talented and exactly what they need. That night, Nadia called her brother Isaiah to share the news. That's amazing, sis, Isaiah said, and she could hear the pride in his voice. I'm so happy for you. And hey, Mom wants to know when she can come visit. She's been asking every day since you left Trevor. Mom wants to visit? Nadia felt her throat tighten. She'd been so worried that her family would be disappointed in her for leaving her marriage, for giving up on something she'd committed to. Are you kidding? She's been planning it since you told us you were leaving. She wanted to come right away, but I told her to give you some space to settle in first. But Nadia, she's proud of you. We all are. It takes courage to start over. After they hung up, Nadia sat in the quiet of her room and let herself feel it, the weight of fear she'd been carrying, the worry that leaving Trevor meant losing everyone else too. But it wasn't true. Her real family, the people who actually loved her, were still there. They'd always been there, waiting for her to come back to herself. The next few weeks passed in a blur of new beginnings. Nadia started her job at the gallery and loved it immediately. She had ideas, opinions, perspectives that Rachel and the other curators actually valued. They asked for her input. They listened when she spoke. They saw her. She moved into her studio apartment, small but hers, with exposed brick and big windows that let in morning light. She furnished it slowly with second-hand finds and pieces she actually liked, not what someone else told her was appropriate. She hung art on the walls. She bought colorful pillows. She made it home. She continued therapy with Dr. Patricia Hughes, a warm woman in her 60s who specialized in helping people recover from emotional abuse. What Trevor did, the gaslighting, the isolation, the constant criticism, that's abuse, Dr. Hughes told her in their third session. It might not have been physical, but it was real, and the damage it did is real. You're not overreacting by leaving. You're not being dramatic by feeling hurt. You experienced genuine trauma, and healing from that takes time. Hearing it validated, being told that what she'd experienced had a name, that it wasn't her fault, helped more than Nadia could have imagined. Meanwhile, news of Trevor's life continued to filter through social media and mutual acquaintances, though Nadia tried not to pay attention. Bethany had left him, apparently, once she realized there was no condo, no luxurious life together, just a man who'd sacrificed everything for a business deal that fell apart. His family was reportedly furious with him for how the divorce had reflected on them. His mother Eleanor had apparently told people at the country club that Trevor had handled things poorly. As if systematically destroying your wife's self-esteem and cheating on her were just minor tactical errors. One evening, about 6 weeks after Nadia had left, she was at the gallery late preparing for an upcoming exhibition when her phone rang. A known number. She almost didn't answer, but something made her pick up. Nadia? Trevor's voice. Strained, desperate. Please don't hang up. How did you get this number? Nadia asked coldly. And why are you calling? Our agreement says no direct contact. I know. I got it from, it doesn't matter. Nadia, please. I need to talk to you. We have nothing to talk about. Call my lawyer if you have legal questions. It's not about legal stuff. It's about us. About what happened. About? There is no us, Nadia interrupted. There never was really. There was you, and there was the version of me you tried to create. But that's over now. I know I messed up. His voice cracked. I know I said things I shouldn't have said, did things I shouldn't have done. But we were married for 5 years. That has to mean something. Nadia felt a flash of anger, hot and clean. You want to know what those 5 years meant? They meant me hearing you tell your family I was an embarrassment. They meant discovering you'd been planning to divorce me while pretending everything was fine. They meant finding out you were having an affair while I was home trying to be the perfect wife you told me I could never be. So no, Trevor. Those 5 years don't mean what you think they mean. I never should have said those things. I was frustrated and I took it out on you, and I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. You're sorry you got caught. You're sorry your merger fell through. You're sorry Bethany left you. You're not sorry for how you treated me, you're sorry about the consequences. That's not fair. Fair? Nadia laughed, a sound without humor. You want to talk about fair? Here's what's fair. I gave you 5 years of my life. I made myself smaller and smaller trying to fit into your perfect world. I apologized for existing. And you thanked me by mocking me behind my back and planning to discard me when it was convenient. So now I get to move on and build a life without you. That's fair. I miss you, Trevor said quietly. I know I don't deserve to, but I miss you. The house is so empty without you. Everything is empty. For a moment, just a moment, Nadia felt a pang of something. Not pity exactly. Just recognition that this man, despite everything, was human and hurting. But his pain wasn't her responsibility. It had never been her responsibility to manage his emotions, to make his life full, to be enough for him. I'm not coming back, Trevor. Not now, not ever. I'm happy here. I have a job I love, friends who actually care about me, a life that's mine. You gave me that, in a way. You made the decision to leave so easy. Nadia. Goodbye, Trevor. She hung up and immediately blocked the number. Her hands shook slightly as she set the phone down. Dr. Hughes had told her this might happen, that Trevor might try to contact her to pull her back in, especially once his life fell apart. Abusers often try to hoover their victims back when they've lost control, Dr. Hughes had warned. They'll apologize, promise to change, anything to regain that power. You need to stay strong. Nadia didn't feel strong in that moment. She felt shaky and sad, mourning not the man Trevor actually was, but the man she'd once hoped he could be. She called Dr. Hughes' emergency line. The therapist called back within 10 minutes. He called me, Nadia told her. And I told him no. I told him I wasn't coming back. How do you feel about that? Proud, Nadia realized. And sad. But mostly proud. That's completely normal, Dr. Hughes assured her. Grief isn't linear. You can be sad about losing the fantasy of what you hoped the marriage would be, while still being certain you made the right choice to leave. Those feelings can coexist. After the call, Nadia returned to setting up the gallery exhibition. The show was featuring emerging black artists from the Midwest, and she'd spent weeks helping select pieces and arrange the space. It was meaningful work, important work, and it was hers. Her phone buzzed with a text from Simone. Dinner at my place? Made your favorite. Nadia smiled. Real friendship, freely given, no strings attached. Be there in an hour. As she walked through the gallery space, adjusting lights and checking labels, Nadia thought about Trevor's phone call. He'd said the house was empty without her. But the truth was, the house had always been empty. What he missed wasn't her, he'd never really known her. He missed the idea of her, the convenience of having someone to blame, someone to manage his life, someone to make him feel important. She didn't miss him at all. She didn't miss the house or his family, or the life they'd built. It had never been her life. It had been a performance, and she'd finally walked off the stage. Her real life was here now, in this gallery, in Simone's apartment, in therapy sessions and Sunday phone calls with Isaiah, in the small moments of joy she was learning to recognize again. Trevor got the empty house. Nadia got herself back. And that, she thought as she locked up the gallery and headed to Simone's, was more than a fair trade. 3 months into her new life, Nadia stood in front of a room full of people and spoke about art for the first time in years. It was a gallery talk for the Emerging Artists exhibition, and she'd spent the week before terrified she'd mess it up, say the wrong thing, embarrass herself. But when she started speaking, something clicked. The words flowed naturally as she discussed the themes in the artwork, the artist's techniques, the cultural context. People listened. They asked questions. They engaged with her ideas. A few even approached her afterward to continue the conversation. You're a natural, Rachel told her as they cleaned up after the event. I knew you would be. You have this way of making art accessible without dumbing it down. That's a rare gift. Really? Nadia asked, still not quite able to believe it. Really? In fact, I wanted to talk to you about taking on more public-facing responsibilities. Educational programs, curator talks, maybe even some writing for our website and catalogs. If you're interested. Interested? Nadia was thrilled. These were exactly the kinds of opportunities Trevor had convinced her she wasn't capable of. I'd love that. Her personal life was rebuilding too. She'd reconnected with old friends, made new ones, started building a social circle that actually nourished her instead of draining her. She went to museums on weekends. She took a painting class. She read books Trevor would have called frivolous. She existed loudly, messily, joyfully. Her mother and Isaiah visited for a weekend, and Nadia showed them around Chicago with pride. They met Simone, saw her apartment, came to the gallery. You seem different, her mother said over dinner that first night. Lighter. Like you can breathe again. I can, Nadia replied. I forgot what that felt like. Isaiah squeezed her hand. We're proud of you, sis. It couldn't have been easy to start over like this. It was the easiest hard thing I've ever done, Nadia said. Leaving was hard. But everything after that? That's been the easy part. The divorce was finalized in February, exactly 94 days after Nadia had walked out of Trevor's house. Diane called to tell her it was official. You're free, the lawyer said. And the settlement check will be deposited in your account within 3 business days. Free. The word felt huge, important, real. Nadia splurged on a proper bed for her apartment. Not an expensive one, just a comfortable one that was hers. She bought art from the gallery, pieces by the emerging artists whose work she loved. She started a savings account for the future, whatever that might hold. She also started dating again tentatively. Nothing serious, just coffee dates and casual dinners, remembering what it felt like to have someone be interested in her thoughts and opinions, to have conversations that were actually reciprocal. One of those coffee dates was with a man named Jordan West, an artist whose work was being featured in the gallery's summer show. He was quiet, thoughtful, with kind eyes and hands that were always paint-stained. They'd met when he came in to discuss the installation of his pieces, and Nadia had been struck by how he listened when she talked about his work. Really listened, asking follow-up questions, caring about her perspective. "Would you want to get dinner sometime?" Jordan had asked after one of their meetings. "Not as curator and artist, just as people?" Nadia had hesitated. Dr. Hughes had warned her about jumping into new relationships too quickly, about the importance of being solid in herself before letting someone else in. "I'd like that," she'd said. "But I need to be honest, I just got out of a really difficult marriage. I'm not looking for anything serious right now. I'm still figuring out who I am on my own." Jordan had smiled. "That's fair. How about we just be friends who have dinner sometimes? No pressure, no expectations. Just good food and good conversation." They'd been having those dinners for a few weeks now, and Nadia found herself looking forward to them. Jordan was easy to talk to, never pushy, never trying to fix her or change her. He told her about his art, his struggles as a black artist trying to make it in a competitive field, his own past heartbreaks. She told him about Trevor, about the marriage, about rebuilding. "You're brave," Jordan said one evening over Thai food. "A lot of people would have stayed. It's safer even when it's awful." "I didn't feel brave," Nadia admitted. "I felt terrified. I still feel terrified sometimes. That's what bravery is though. Being scared and doing it anyway." Around this time, Nadia started hearing through the grapevine that Trevor's life was continuing to spiral. He'd lost several clients after the Henderson merger fell through. His reputation in business circles was damaged. He'd moved out of the house, couldn't afford it anymore apparently, and was renting a small condo. Part of Nadia, the part that Dr. Hughes said would take longer to heal, felt guilty about this. Like somehow his downfall was her fault for leaving, for taking the settlement money, for not being there to support him. But the stronger, healthier part of her knew the truth. Trevor's problems were his own making. He'd hidden assets, lied to business partners, cheated on his wife, and treated everyone in his life as tools to serve his ambition. The consequences he was facing weren't because Nadia left. They were because his house of cards had finally collapsed under its own weight. "You didn't cause this," Dr. Hughes reminded her in therapy. "You extracted yourself from a toxic situation. What happened to him after that is not your responsibility." Nadia was learning to accept that. Learning to silence the voice in her head that sounded suspiciously like Trevor, telling her everything was her fault, that she wasn't good enough, that she should have tried harder. That voice was getting quieter every day. Spring arrived and with it new opportunities. Rachel offered Nadia a promotion, full curator, not just assistant. With it came a salary increase, more responsibility, and the chance to develop her own exhibitions. "You've earned this," Rachel said. "Your work these past few months has been exceptional. The artists love working with you, the community engagement numbers are up, and frankly, you have a vision for this place that I want to nurture." Nadia accepted immediately. Later that evening she called everyone who mattered to share the news. Simone, Isaiah, her mother, even a few friends from college she'd reconnected with. Each conversation was filled with genuine excitement and support. She didn't call Trevor. She didn't even think about calling Trevor. He was a chapter of her life that was closed now, the pages sealed shut. That night, celebrating with Simone over wine and takeout, Nadia realized something profound. She was happy. Not just okay, not just surviving. Actually happy. "I don't think I've been happy in years," she told Simone. "Like genuinely happy. I forgot what it felt like." "You deserve it," Simone said firmly. "You deserve all of this, the job, the life, the freedom to just be yourself." "I wasted so much time," Nadia said quietly. 5 years with Trevor. 5 years I'll never get back." "You didn't waste them," Simone countered. "You learned from them. You learned what you don't want, what you won't accept, what you deserve. Those are valuable lessons even if they came at a cost." Nadia considered this. "You're right. I learned I'm stronger than I thought. I learned I can start over. I learned that leaving is possible even when it seems impossible. And you learned that you're enough," Simone added. "Just as you are. You don't need to change yourself or shrink yourself or apologize for existing. You're enough." Tears pricked at Nadia's eyes. "I'm enough." "Say it again." "I'm enough." "Again." "I'm enough." And for the first time in longer than she could remember, Nadia believed it. Her phone buzzed with a text from Jordan. Saw the news about your promotion on the gallery's Instagram. Congrats. That's amazing. Celebratory dinner tomorrow? Nadia smiled and typed back, yes. And Jordan? Thank you for being patient with me. His response came quickly, you're worth being patient for. She didn't know where things with Jordan would go. Maybe nowhere. Maybe somewhere. But the difference now was that she didn't need to know. She didn't need a man to complete her or validate her or give her life meaning. She had all of that on her own. Jordan was just a nice addition. A friend. Maybe more someday, maybe not. And either way was okay. Nadia went to bed that night in her small apartment, surrounded by her books and art and plants, and slept deeply and dreamlessly. No more nightmares about Trevor's family laughing at her. No more anxiety dreams about saying the wrong thing at dinner parties. Just peace. Just rest. Just the deep, satisfied sleep of someone who knows exactly who they are and is completely okay with it. The rebuilding was working. Nadia was working. And for the first time in years, the future stretched out before her not as something to fear or endure, but as something to anticipate with joy. She was ready for whatever came next. Because whatever it was, she would face it as herself. Fully, unapologetically, courageously herself. And that, she realized, was all she'd ever needed to be. Summer brought heat and opportunity in equal measure. The gallery's new exhibition, one that Nadia had curated entirely on her own, opened to critical acclaim. Local art critics praised the show's thoughtful curation and fresh perspective. Attendance numbers exceeded expectations. Several pieces sold within the first week, and the artists sent Nadia grateful messages thanking her for believing in their work. You have a real eye for this, Rachel told her at the opening reception. And more importantly, you have heart. You don't just see art, you feel it and you help other people feel it too. Nadia looked around the gallery space, filled with people engaging with the work she'd selected, arranged and contextualized. She'd written all the wall text herself, given a talk about the exhibition's themes, even been interviewed for a local arts podcast. 6 months ago, she would have been terrified to put herself forward like that. Now it felt natural. Thank you for taking a chance on me, Nadia said to Rachel. I didn't take a chance. I recognize talent. There's a difference. Jordan attended the opening, of course. His own work was featured in a group show in the next gallery over. They'd been seeing each other regularly now, not officially dating but something more than friendship. They took long walks around the city, visited other museums and galleries together, talked about art and life and their respective healing journeys. I was married before too, Jordan had told her one evening. It ended badly. She wanted me to give up art, get a real job, be someone I wasn't. It took me years to feel like myself again after it ended. Do you ever regret leaving? Nadia had asked. Never. Not once. I regret staying as long as I did. I should have left sooner. Nadia understood that feeling completely. At the opening reception, Jordan found her during a quiet moment. This show is incredible. You're incredible. Thank you, Nadia said and meant it. She was learning to accept compliments, to believe them, to not immediately deflect or minimize her accomplishments. There's something I want to ask you, Jordan said, looking nervous. And feel free to say no, I mean it, absolutely no pressure. But there's this artist retreat upstate next month. A week of workshops, nature, creativity. I'm going and I wondered if you'd want to come with me. As a friend or, as more than a friend. Whatever you're comfortable with. Nadia's first instinct was to say no. To protect herself, maintain distance, not risk getting hurt again. But then she thought about what Dr. Hughes had said in their last session. Healing isn't about never trusting again. It's about learning to trust wisely. Not everyone is Trevor. Some people are actually worth the risk. I'd like that, Nadia said. As more than a friend. If that's what you want too. Jordan's smile was like sunrise. That's definitely what I want. They kissed for the first time that night, outside the gallery after the reception ended, under streetlights and stars. It was gentle and tentative and nothing like kissing Trevor had been. With Trevor, kisses had felt like obligations, performances. This felt like coming home. The next few weeks brought more changes. Nadia was invited to speak on a panel about emerging artists at a museum conference. She said yes even though the idea terrified her. A regional arts magazine asked to interview her about her curatorial approach. She said yes to that too. She also joined a book club that Simone's friend hosted, started volunteering at a community arts center, and took up yoga. She was filling her life with things that brought her joy, with people who appreciated her, with experiences that made her feel alive. "You're glowing," her mother said during one of their weekly phone calls. "I can hear it in your voice. You sound happy." "I'm happy, Mom. Really happy." "Good. You deserve it, baby. After everything you went through with that man, you deserve all the happiness in the world." Nadia had told her family more about what the marriage to Trevor had really been like. Not immediately, she'd needed time to process it first, but gradually in conversations that helped them all understand what she'd survived. Her mother had cried. Isaiah had been angry. But they'd all supported her, validated her experience, and reminded her that she was loved unconditionally. It was a gift, being reminded that love didn't have to come with conditions, that she didn't have to earn affection by being someone she wasn't. One Saturday in July, Nadia was at a coffee shop writing wall text for an upcoming exhibition when someone approached her table. "Nadia? Nadia Anderson?" She looked up and recognized a woman from her and Trevor's old neighborhood. Jennifer something, one of the country club wives who'd always looked at Nadia with barely concealed disdain. "Hi," Nadia said cautiously. "I just wanted to say, I heard about the divorce, and I wanted to apologize." Jennifer shifted her weight awkwardly. "I wasn't nice to you. None of us were. We followed Eleanor's lead and she decided you weren't good enough for Trevor, so we all treated you like you weren't good enough either. That was wrong." Nadia didn't know what to say. Part of her wanted to tell Jennifer exactly what she thought of her and the rest of Trevor's social circle. But a bigger part of her just felt tired of holding on to anger. "Thank you for saying that," Nadia said simply. "For what it's worth," Jennifer continued, "Trevor's not doing well. He's bitter and angry and blames everyone but himself for how things turned out. A lot of us have distanced ourselves from him. His behavior toward you, what we heard about after the divorce, it was inexcusable." "What did you hear?" Jennifer looked uncomfortable. "That he was cheating on you. That he'd been planning to divorce you for months while pretending everything was fine. That he said terrible things about you to his family. I feel awful that I contributed to making you feel unwelcome. You deserved better." "I did," Nadia agreed. "But I'm getting better now. So thank you for the apology. I appreciate it." After Jennifer left, Nadia sat for a long moment processing the encounter. She'd spent so much energy in that marriage trying to win over Trevor's friends and neighbors, trying to fit in, trying to prove she belonged. And now here was one of them, apologizing, acknowledging that she'd been treated badly. It should have felt vindicating. Instead it just felt sad. Sad that she'd wasted time caring about the opinions of people who'd never really mattered. Sad that she'd let their judgment make her feel small. But also grateful. Grateful that she'd escaped. Grateful that she'd built a new life where people valued her for who she actually was. She returned to her writing, the interaction already fading in importance. Jennifer's apology was nice, but it didn't change anything. Nadia didn't need validation from Trevor's world anymore. She had her own world now and it was infinitely better. The artist's retreat with Jordan was magical. A week in the woods, surrounded by creative people, making art and thinking and talking and laughing. Jordan painted while Nadia sketched and wrote and allowed herself to be creative in ways she hadn't since before the marriage. They hiked together, cooked meals with the other artists, stayed up late talking about everything and nothing. And yes, they shared a cabin, shared a bed, shared intimacy that was warm and real and so different from what Nadia had experienced with Trevor. "I care about you," Jordan told her one night as they lay together, windows open to let in the sounds of the forest. "I know we're taking this slow and I respect that. But I want you to know I see you. The real you. And I think you're extraordinary." Nadia felt tears prick her eyes. "I care about you too. And I think I'm finally ready for this. For us. For whatever this becomes." "No pressure," Jordan said, kissing her forehead. "We have time." Time. Yes, they had time. Nadia wasn't in a rush anymore. She wasn't trying to force herself into someone else's timeline or expectations. She was just living her life, day by day, moment by moment, building something real and solid in hers. When they returned to Chicago, Nadia felt more settled than ever. Her life had shape now, substance. She had work she loved, friends who supported her, a developing relationship with someone who respected her, and most importantly, she had herself. The woman she'd lost somewhere in her marriage to Trevor, she'd found again, or maybe she'd created someone new, someone stronger and wiser and more authentic. Rachel pulled her aside at work one day in late August. "I have something to discuss with you. The board has approved funding for a new position, Director of Educational Programming. It would be a significant step up, more money, more responsibility. I'd like to offer it to you." Nadia's breath caught. "Director? You're ready for it?" You've proven yourself over and over. You're creative, knowledgeable, great with people, and you bring fresh perspectives to everything you do. What do you say? Yes, Nadia said without hesitation. Absolutely yes. That night she called everyone to share the news. Then she celebrated with Jordan over a fancy dinner neither of them could really afford but decided to splurge on anyway. To director Nadia Anderson, Jordan toasted. May this be the first of many achievements. To new beginnings, Nadia countered. And to knowing our worth. To knowing our worth, Jordan echoed. As summer faded into fall, Nadia looked back on the past 9 months with something like awe. She'd left a marriage that was destroying her. She'd started over in a new city with nothing but hope and determination. She'd rebuilt her life from scratch. And now she had a career she loved, relationships that nourished her, and a future that felt limitless. Trevor's voice still echoed in her head sometimes, telling her she wasn't good enough, wasn't smart enough, wasn't enough. But those echoes were fading, growing quieter every day, drowned out by her own voice, stronger, clearer, certain. She was enough. She'd always been enough. And finally, beautifully, she believed it. October brought crisp air, changing leaves, and an unexpected visitor to the gallery. Nadia was in her new office. The promotion had come with actual workspace, reviewing proposals for winter programming when the front desk called. Someone here to see you, the receptionist said, voice uncertain. He says it's important. His name is Trevor Henderson. Nadia's stomach dropped. Tell him I'm not available. I did. He says he'll wait. He seems determined. Nadia took a deep breath, then another. She could feel her heart racing, old anxiety patterns trying to reassert themselves. But she wasn't the same woman Trevor had known. She'd spent nearly a year rebuilding herself, becoming stronger, becoming whole. Call security and let them know we might have a situation, Nadia said calmly. I'll be out in a moment. She checked her reflection in the small mirror on her wall. Professional dress, natural hair styled the way she liked it, minimal makeup. She looked like herself, confident, capable, self-assured. Nothing like the woman who'd served coffee to Trevor's family while they laughed about her. Trevor was in the gallery's main space, pretending to look at artwork but clearly just waiting. He looked terrible, thinner than she remembered, wearing a suit that seemed slightly too big, stress evident in the lines around his eyes. He'd aged in the 10 months since she'd left. Or maybe she'd just never really looked at him before, not clearly. Trevor, she said coolly, you need to leave. Our divorce agreement specifically states no direct contact. He turned and something flickered across his face, relief maybe or hope. Nadia. Thank God. I've been trying to reach you for months. Through lawyers as agreed. What part of no contact is unclear to you? I just need 5 minutes. Please. Just 5 minutes to talk. We have nothing to talk about. Leave or I'll have security escort you out. Nadia, please. His voice cracked. Everything's fallen apart. The business, my reputation, everything. I've lost the house, lost most of my clients. Even my family has turned their backs on me. You're the only one who. The only one who what? Nadia interrupted, her voice sharp. The only one you think you can manipulate? The only one who might still care enough to save you. That's not what I meant. I don't care what you meant. I care that you're here, violating our agreement, in my workplace, trying to make your problems into my problems again. That's what you always did, Trevor. Everything was always my responsibility to fix. I know I hurt you, Trevor said, taking a step closer. Nadia held her ground. I know I said terrible things, did terrible things. But I've been in therapy. I've been working on myself. I understand now how badly I treated you. Congratulations. That doesn't entitle you to anything from me. I'm not asking for us to get back together, he said quickly. I know I destroyed that. I just thought, maybe we could talk. Maybe you could help me understand where I went wrong, how to fix things. Nadia stared at him, genuinely amazed. You want me to do emotional labor for you? To help you figure out how to fix the mess you made? Trevor, even now, even after everything, you think I exist to serve you. That's not. It is. You show up here without permission, violate our agreement, and ask me to help you. You haven't changed at all. You just don't have anyone else left to use. Nadia, please. I heard you that night, she said quietly. At your mother's house, almost a year ago. I heard you tell your family I was an embarrassment. I heard you laugh about me, about my family, about everything I tried so hard to be for you. I heard it all. Trevor went pale. You were listening? I was getting my phone. But yes, I heard. And that's when I knew, Not when I found out about Bethany, not when I saw the emails about divorcing me after the merger. That night, when I heard how you really felt about me. That's when I decided to leave. I didn't mean those things. Yes, you did. You meant every word. And you know what? You were right about one thing. I was an embarrassment to myself. I was embarrassed for staying with someone who treated me like I was less than nothing. I was embarrassed for letting you and your family make me feel worthless. I was embarrassed that I'd forgotten who I was just to try to make you happy. Nadia. But I'm not embarrassed anymore, she continued, her voice steady and strong. Because I left. I rebuilt my life. I found work I love, people who value me, a partner who respects me. I found myself again. And the best part? None of it has anything to do with you. I can change, Trevor said desperately. If you just give me a chance. I'm not giving you anything, Trevor. Not my time, not my energy, not my emotional labor. You had 5 years of chances and you used every one of them to make me feel small. I'm done making myself small for anyone. Security arrived then. 2 men Nadia had alerted when she'd first come out to the gallery floor. Everything okay here? One of them asked. This man is leaving, Nadia said clearly. He's not welcome here, and if he returns, I want him escorted off the property immediately. You heard her, the guard said to Trevor. Time to go. Nadia, wait. Goodbye, Trevor. They escorted him out. Through the gallery's windows, Nadia watched him stand on the sidewalk for a long moment, looking lost and small before finally walking away. She stood there for several minutes after he'd gone, her hands shaking slightly, adrenaline coursing through her system. But underneath the physical response was something else, a sense of completion, of closure, of finality. Rachel appeared beside her. Are you okay? That looked intense. That was my ex-husband, Nadia said. Coming here to ask for help fixing his life. Are you kidding me? After what he put you through. He genuinely believed I might help him. That's how little he understood about what he'd done, what the marriage was really like. Even now, he thinks he's the victim. What do you need? Rachel asked simply. Do you need to take the rest of the day? Do you need to talk? Do you need me to file a restraining order? Nadia considered. No. I just need to get back to work. I have a programming proposal that's due tomorrow, and I'm really excited about it. Rachel looked at her with something like admiration. You're amazing, you know that? I'm learning, Nadia replied. That evening she met Jordan at their favorite coffee shop. She told him what had happened, needing to process it with someone who understood. How do you feel? Jordan asked. Powerful, Nadia realized. I thought seeing him would make me feel small again or scared or like I might doubt my choices. But instead I just felt powerful. Like I finally had a chance to tell him exactly what his behavior did to me, what I thought of him, without having to manage his emotions or make him feel better about himself. That's growth, Jordan said. That's healing. It really is. Nadia paused. Jordan, I need you to know something. I'm not going back to him. Not ever, not for any reason. This thing with you and me, I'm all in. If that's what you want too. Jordan smiled, that warm, genuine smile that made her feel safe. That's absolutely what I want. I'm all in too. They kissed, and Nadia felt something settle inside her. A sense of rightness, of being exactly where she was supposed to be. Later that night, alone in her apartment, Nadia wrote in the journal Dr. Hughes had encouraged her to keep. I saw Trevor today. He wanted my help, my sympathy, my emotional energy. He wanted me to fix him. And for the first time I didn't feel guilty for saying no. I didn't feel obligated to care about his problems. I felt free. This is what healing looks like. Not never being affected, but being affected without being destroyed. Not never feeling sad, but feeling sad without being consumed. Not never encountering the past, but encountering it with the tools to handle it. I'm not the woman I was a year ago. That woman would have listened to Trevor's sob story, might have even believed she could help, might have felt responsible for his unhappiness. This version of me knows better. This version knows that his emotions are not my responsibility, that his consequences are not my fault, that his problems are not mine to solve. I am enough. I was always enough. And I will never again let anyone convince me otherwise. She closed the journal, turned off the lights, and went to bed with a clear conscience and a peaceful heart. Trevor had tried to pull her back into his orbit, tried to use old patterns of guilt and obligation to manipulate her one more time. And she'd said no. She'd stood her ground. She'd protected herself and her new life. That, Nadia thought as she drifted off to sleep, was worth celebrating. Not because she'd hurt Trevor, that had never been the goal, but because she'd finally, fully, completely chosen herself. November arrived with cold winds and new opportunities. The gallery's winter exhibition, centered on themes of transformation and resilience, was Nadia's most ambitious project yet. She'd been working on it for months, carefully selecting artists whose work spoke to the idea of emerging from darkness into light, of rebuilding, of becoming. It was, she admitted to Dr. Hughes, deeply personal. "I'm curating my own story," Nadia said in one of their sessions. "These artists, they've all been through something. Trauma, loss, setbacks. And they've transformed that pain into something beautiful and meaningful. That's what I'm trying to do too. And you're succeeding," Dr. Hughes told her. "Look at how far you've come in less than a year." The exhibition opening was scheduled for the Friday before Thanksgiving. Nadia had invited everyone who mattered: Simone, Jordan, her mother, and Isaiah, Rachel, her colleagues, artists from previous shows, even some of her old college friends who'd reached out over the past months. The week before the opening, Nadia received an email that made her stop breathing. "Dear Ms. Anderson, my name is Sharon Kim, and I'm the director of the Contemporary Arts Foundation. We've been following your work at the Riverside Gallery with great interest. Your curatorial vision, particularly your focus on emerging voices and themes of resilience, aligns perfectly with our mission. We're currently searching for a senior curator for our new initiative supporting Black and minority artists in the Midwest. We'd love to schedule a conversation with you about this position. Best regards, Sharon." Nadia read the email 3 times. The Contemporary Arts Foundation was one of the most respected arts organizations in the region. A senior curator position, there would be a massive leap forward in her career. More resources, more visibility, more opportunity to make real impact. She called Rachel immediately. "I just got a job offer." "Well, an interview offer." "From the Contemporary Arts Foundation." Rachel was quiet for a moment. That's huge, Nadia. That's incredible. Are you upset?" "What? No. I'm thrilled for you. Also slightly devastated because you're irreplaceable here, but mostly thrilled." "When's the interview?" "I haven't responded yet. I wanted to talk to you first." "Nadia, if you don't respond to that email in the next 5 minutes, I'm going to be very disappointed in you. This is an amazing opportunity. Take it." She did take it. The interview was scheduled for the Monday after the exhibition opening, and Nadia spent the weekend preparing while also finalizing exhibition details. The opening itself was magical. The gallery was packed with people, all there to celebrate art about survival, about transformation, about hope. Nadia gave a talk about the exhibition's themes, her voice steady and confident, and received enthusiastic applause. Her mother hugged her tightly afterward. "Look at you, baby. Look at what you've built. I'm so proud of you." Isaiah brought his girlfriend, a lovely woman named Taylor who worked in community organizing. "Your sister is incredible," Taylor told him in Nadia's hearing. "The way she talks about art, you can tell she loves what she does." Jordan stood beside her throughout the evening, supportive but not overbearing, there when she needed him but giving her space to shine. At one point he whispered, "You're in your element. This is where you belong." Simone cornered her near the end of the night, wine in hand and tears in her eyes. "Remember when you showed up at my door almost a year ago? You were so broken, so lost. Look at you now. You're glowing. You're powerful. You're free." "I couldn't have done it without you," Nadia said honestly. "You did do it without me. I just gave you a place to land. You did the hard work." After the reception ended and the crowd dispersed, the core group, Nadia, Jordan, Simone, and Rachel, went out for late-night food at a diner that served breakfast at midnight. To Nadia, Rachel toasted with her coffee mug. "And to the future, whatever it brings." "To the future," they echoed. The interview with the Contemporary Arts Foundation went even better than Nadia had hoped. Sharon Kim and 2 other board members asked thoughtful questions about her curatorial philosophy, her vision for supporting emerging artists, her thoughts on making art accessible to diverse communities. Nadia answered with confidence, sharing her experiences and ideas without second-guessing herself. "You have a unique perspective," Sharon told her at the end. "You understand what it means to be underestimated, to have to prove yourself, to fight for recognition. That empathy comes through in your work. It's exactly what we need." They offered her the position 3 days later. Senior curator, with a salary that made her eyes water, benefits that actually included things like mental health support and professional development, and the resources to make a real difference in the arts community. "I accept," Nadia said without hesitation. She gave Rachel a month's notice, feeling both excited and guilty. The Riverside Gallery had given her a chance when she needed it most. Don't you dare feel bad, Rachel told her firmly. You're ready for this. Go change the world. Thanksgiving that year was different from any Nadia had experienced in recent memory. Instead of sitting at Trevor's family's table feeling judged and inadequate, she hosted dinner at her apartment for Simone, Jordan, Isaiah, and Taylor. Her mother came too, flying in for the long weekend. They cooked together, laughed together, told stories. There were no loaded comments about Nadia's cooking or appearance or worth. There was just love, freely given, no strings attached. I'm grateful for all of you, Nadia said during their makeshift grace. A year ago I didn't think I could survive. Now I'm sitting here with people who actually care about me, doing work I love, living a life that's mine. Thank you for being part of my journey. We're grateful for you too, her mother said, squeezing her hand. After dinner, while the others were in the living room, Jordan found Nadia in the kitchen. I love you, he said simply. I know we said we'd take things slow and we have, but I need you to know. I love you. Not who I want you to be. Just you, exactly as you are. Nadia felt tears prick her eyes. I love you too. And Jordan? Thank you for being patient with me. Thank you for letting me heal at my own pace. Always, he said and kissed her. Early December brought news that made Nadia laugh with grim satisfaction. Through the grapevine, specifically through someone in Trevor's old business circles who followed the gallery on social media, she heard that Trevor had been forced to file for bankruptcy. The failed merger, the legal fees from the divorce, the damage to his reputation, it had all caught up with him. Bethany had apparently sued him for breach of promise. Nadia hadn't even known that was still a thing. His mother was reportedly mortified by the scandal. Several of his old friends and business associates had cut ties. How do you feel about that? Dr. Hughes asked when Nadia mentioned it in therapy. Honestly? Nothing. No satisfaction, no guilt, no anger. Just nothing. His life is his life. Mine is mine. They're not connected anymore. That's significant growth, Dr. Hughes noted. A year ago, hearing about his troubles would have made you feel either guilty for causing them or vindicated for leaving. Now you just feel neutral. That's what true healing looks like. Nadia agreed. Trevor had become irrelevant to her emotional landscape. He was just a person she used to know, a chapter she'd closed. His problems weren't her problems. His journey wasn't her journey. Her new position at the Contemporary Arts Foundation started in January, and the weeks leading up to it were filled with excited preparation. She said goodbye to the Riverside Gallery with mixed emotions, grateful for the foundation it had provided but excited for what came next. On her last day, the staff threw her a party. Several artists she'd worked with came to wish her well. Rachel gave a speech about how Nadia had transformed the gallery's programming and inspired everyone around her. You came to us a year ago looking for a fresh start, Rachel said. You gave us so much more than that. You brought vision, passion, and heart. We're going to miss you terribly, but we're so excited to see what you do next. That evening, Nadia sat in her apartment and reflected on the past year. She'd started 2024 as a woman who didn't know her own worth, trapped in a marriage that diminished her, believing she was lucky to be tolerated. She was ending it as a senior curator at a major arts foundation, with a partner who loved and respected her, with family and friends who valued her, with confidence in her abilities and her future. The transformation was almost unbelievable. But it was real. She'd done the work, the therapy, the self-reflection, the slow rebuilding of her life and identity. She'd made choices that served her well-being instead of others' expectations. She'd learned to recognize her worth and demand that others recognize it too. She thought about Trevor's visit to the gallery, his desperate request for help. She wondered if he'd learned anything from losing everything, if he'd actually changed, or if he was just looking for the next person to manage his emotions and fix his problems. It didn't matter. He wasn't her concern anymore. What mattered was what she'd built from the ashes of that marriage. What mattered was the life she was living now, authentic, purposeful, joyful. She'd left without a goodbye, walked away from 5 years of her life with nothing but her dignity and her determination. And she'd built something beautiful. That, Nadia thought, was the best revenge of all. Not hurting Trevor or proving him wrong. Just living well. Just being happy. Just being free. And she was all three. January brought snow and new beginnings. Nadia's first day at the Contemporary Arts Foundation felt like stepping into a dream she hadn't known she was allowed to have. The foundation's offices were in a converted warehouse, all exposed brick and natural light, with gallery space on the main floor and offices above. Her workspace had windows overlooking the city, a real desk, a budget that made her previous resources seem laughable. But more than the physical space, what struck her was the energy, people passionate about art, committed to supporting artists, believing that culture mattered and could change lives. "Welcome to the team," Sharon said, giving her a tour. "We're so glad you're here." The first few weeks were a whirlwind of meetings, planning sessions, getting to know the staff and the artists in their network. Nadia learned about the foundation's existing programs and began developing proposals for new initiatives. Mentorship programs for emerging artists, community engagement projects, partnerships with schools. Much space each person needed for their work, how to navigate conflict, what they both wanted from the relationship. "This is how partnerships should work," Jordan said as they unpacked boxes. "Two whole people choosing to build something together, not one person trying to mold the other into what they want." "I didn't know that was possible," Nadia admitted. "I thought relationships were always about compromise and sacrifice." "Compromise, yes. But not sacrificing who you are. Never that." The Rising exhibition opened in September to critical acclaim and emotional responses. The artists Nadia had selected had created powerful work about surviving trauma, about transformation, about hope. The exhibition included visual art, but also poetry and music, creating a multisensory experience of resilience. At the opening reception, Nadia gave a talk about the exhibition's themes. She ended with a personal reflection. "2 years ago, I was in a place of deep darkness. I'd lost myself in a relationship that diminished me. I didn't think I had the strength to leave, much less rebuild. But I did leave. I did rebuild. And now I'm standing here in this beautiful space, surrounded by art that celebrates the human capacity for transformation. If there's one message I want this exhibition to convey, it's this: you are stronger than you know. Healing is possible. Transformation is possible. And you deserve a life that honors your worth." The room erupted in applause. Several people were crying. Afterward, a young woman approached Nadia. "I heard your speech at the women's conference," she said. "It gave me the courage to leave my marriage. I've been in therapy for 3 months now and I'm starting to feel like myself again. I just wanted to say thank you." Nadia hugged her. "You did the hard part. You chose yourself. Keep going." In October, exactly 2 years after the night she'd overheard Trevor calling her an embarrassment, Nadia received an unexpected email. It was from Eleanor, Trevor's mother. "Dear Nadia, I hope this message finds you well. I wanted to reach out to apologize for my behavior during your marriage to my son. I was unkind to you, judgmental, and I contributed to an environment that made you feel unwelcome and inadequate. I've done a lot of reflection since the divorce, particularly after learning more about how Trevor treated you. I was wrong. You deserved better from all of us. I don't expect forgiveness, but I wanted you to know that I'm sorry. I hope you're happy and thriving. From what I've seen of your work at the Contemporary Arts Foundation, you certainly seem to be. Sincerely, Eleanor." Nadia read the email twice, then showed it to Jordan. "What do you want to do?" he asked. "Nothing," Nadia decided. "The apology is nice, but I don't need it. I don't need closure from Trevor's family. I already have closure. I gave it to myself when I left." She deleted the email without responding. Eleanor's guilt and reflection were Eleanor's to manage. Nadia had no obligation to absolve her or make her feel better about her past behavior. That weekend, Nadia celebrated her 34th birthday surrounded by people who actually loved her. Simone, Jordan, her mother, Isaiah and Taylor, Rachel, colleagues from the foundation, artists she'd worked with, friends old and new. They gathered at a restaurant Nadia loved, ate good food, told stories, laughed until their sides hurt. "Make a wish," Simone said as Nadia blew out the candles on her cake. But Nadia didn't need to wish for anything. She had everything she wanted: freedom, purpose, love, community, and most importantly, herself. Later that night, lying in bed next to Jordan in their shared apartment, Nadia reflected on how far she'd come. 2 years ago, she'd been a woman who didn't recognize herself in the mirror, who'd shrunk herself to fit someone else's expectations, who'd believed she was lucky to be tolerated. Now she was a woman who knew her worth, who used her voice confidently, who created meaningful work and built healthy relationships. She'd survived betrayal and abuse and heartbreak, and she'd emerged stronger. "What are you thinking about?" Jordan asked sleepily. "How happy I am," Nadia said. "How grateful I am that I left. How glad I am that I found my way here, to this life, to you. I'm glad too. Though for the record, you found your way to you first. Everything else was just bonus." He was right. She'd found herself first. And that made all the difference. Nadia fell asleep that night with a smile on her face, secure in the knowledge that she'd created a life worth living. Not despite leaving Trevor, but because she'd had the courage to leave. Because she'd chosen herself when it mattered most. The embarrassment of the family, they'd called her. The woman who wasn't good enough, wasn't smart enough, wasn't enough. But they'd been wrong. She'd always been enough. She just hadn't known it yet. Now she did. And she would never forget it again. The ending wasn't about revenge or showing Trevor what he'd lost. It wasn't about him at all. It was about Nadia discovering that the life she'd been searching for had been inside her all along, just waiting for permission to emerge. She'd given herself that permission. And in doing so, she'd given herself everything.